Welcome to Unholy Vibes. I'm Alex, your host. Today, we're joined by another special guest, our friend Jacob. Introduce yourself, tell us who you are, and how you got here, and what you do, in any order.
Sounds great. My name's Jacob or Jake. Back in March, I have a friend who knows that I obsess with weird, freaky, scary, anything, anything in that genre. And he told me, he actually asked, "Have you heard of the Unholy Vibes podcast?" And I hadn't, and I gave it a listen. The first listen was I don't know, remember the exact name, but it was the man in the red mask or something.
Man with the red
And
face, good enough.
man with the red face,
It was.
and I was
I'm
like,
even wrong. I'm wrong. It's the red-faced man.
there you go.
Either one works. It's all the same. Please continue.
Oh, I gave it a listen and I was like, "This is great." One of my other podcasts had gone on a hiatus, so I had another one to listen to and been there ever since. Another thing I loved was a lot of the stories that you told at the beginning grew from a similar culture of mine. I live in Utah, down in Provo. So the stories of Mormon missionaries and stuff in the early ones I really connected with, those are in the culture that I experienced. It plays a little bit in some of the stories I've got, not a ton. I don't have any mission stories. What I do now is I work at a university. I'm a purchaser, a buyer. Right now I do audio visual stuff. Back in the day, I used to buy weird scientific stuff, cadavers,
Whoa.
the and if you invested in cadavers back in 2012, they've doubled in price since then.
Hold on to your cadavers. Wait for a peak in the market.
Exactly. Um,
Oh,
I did that. I bought a little mouse treadmill for it to run on for experiments, and it had a little prod to make it run faster. So that stuff was fun. Now I do audio visual systems for buildings. In my free time, I love disc golf, read a ton, and I write a little bit.
well, I find that fascinating. The cadaver market is hot right now. That's great to know. You heard it here first, guys.
It's the
Um,
next Bitcoin.
yeah, cadaver coin. Okay, so we connected on Instagram. We were talking before we started recording that who you said referred you to this show. I thought I knew who it was, but I don't. So that made me happy. It's like, yay, more people I don't know listening. I'm glad you like the show. We've got a lot more good stuff coming. You and I were chatting, and I do what I do best. I prod and I pry for spooky stories, unusual stories, and you have some. You only told me one while messaging, but
Hmm.
I feel like there's more to all of us. Give us some background, take us through everything, and then we'll discuss.
Yeah, sounds good. As I was remembering all this, I actually went back and found, because some of this communication happened online, and even though it was 2005, I was able to find some of it, and it verified that my memory hasn't changed in 19 years. I went to a school in Idaho called BYU Idaho. Before they let me graduate, I had to do an internship. I'd put it off because I was having too much fun doing other stuff. And so I'd actually done all my classes. The only thing I had left was the internship. And I was a little desperate and I found one 30 miles away in Idaho Falls. If you've been there, it's kind of cool. This internship was at a center for victims of violent crime. My degree was in marketing, but everyone needs marketing. And so it was like, how do we help people know we're here? And how do we help them? How do you give them a way to communicate with you when they might be in a very scary situation? So it was only a 3-month internship,
Hmm.
very small operation, 2 full-time employees, a few volunteers, and they'd hire contractors and stuff. So I started up and I make the drive down there in my '84 Ford F-150. But I show up and it's in the basement of a place called the Hotel Bonneville in Idaho Falls. It's not really a hotel anymore. Idaho Falls was really proud of it when it was built in the 1930s, but it's run down. It's got that look of a building that used to look cool. They've covered a lot of the cool brickwork with rock and stuff. So I show up there and the guy, Matt, who I'd met in school 4 or 5 years ago, Matt, the director, he takes me down to the basement and we're in this 3-room office with, 7-foot ceilings and our storage is just a closet with chicken wire separating our storage unit from the other people's. So it's a nonprofit.
Hmm.
So it's not Silicon Valley where we're just getting by. And so one thing I think is kind of applicable to the story is my frame of mind, and it applies to, I don't know if it's a lessons learned, but so what? What do you take away from this at the end of the whole thing? At the time, I was very scrupulous, almost to an OCD level. I'm not like that anymore. But if you're walking down the hallway and you see an attractive person, you're like, oh shoot. I mean, it was OCD level stuff where I gotta go say a prayer right now. I'm better. But at the time, this was something I was dealing with. I was spending a lot of time feeling like I was not worth anything. And that the spiritual realm at this time, I was very strong in the Mormon faith, that the spiritual realm was closed off to me because I saw an attractive person in the Walmart ads. Kind of silly, but that was me back then.
That's intense.
and and so that kind of came into play when on May 23rd, 2005, I get an email from my brother Nick. He says, "You may think this is silly, but last night I had a disturbing dream, kind of like Anakin, and I'm just wondering if you're safe and everything is okay." And I'm like, "What the heck? I'm fine. I'm just sitting at my desk at 11 a.m. making some flyers to hang in a bathroom at a bar so people can find them." And but then my mind starts racing, like, well, what the heck's going on? And so I kind of nonchalantly bring it up to Matt, the director. I'm like, dude, I just got this weird email from my brother, and I tell him what it says, and he's like, no way, my dad just called me this morning and said he had a feeling I was in danger. And we don't even have time to process it. We're sitting there like, what the heck? What's going on? We're in this basement thinking, and we dealt with the victims of violent crime, help them get legal services, help them get counseling, stuff like that. But sometimes the perpetrators, especially if they haven't been arrested yet, would come and cause problems for us, you
Hmm.
know. And so that was a concern. And so while we're saying that, I don't remember her name, but the other full time employee said, "Wait, that's crazy. My dad and her dad was a stake president, which is pretty high up in the Mormon church, which if you're in the Mormon realm, it's kind of like, oh, that guy's really spiritual." She's like, "My dad just asked me if I was okay, said he was concerned." Me being in super spiritual mode, I hear this voice in my head pops the scripture, "In the mouth of two or three witnesses shall every word be established." We all look at each other and we lock up the place and we go home for the day.
I'm out of here. That's too much to not do something about, right?
Yeah. I mean, our families didn't know each other. There was no way it was a prank. What the heck was going on?
Ooh, okay, continue. I have questions, but
Yeah, so you're wondering, well, what was the reason? First, it's like, well, if God wants to talk to me, why isn't he talking to me? Why is my brother? And I'm like, well, the scrupulosity thing. But today I was thinking, well, you know what? Maybe it was because I wouldn't have paid attention if it just came to my head. We go home, come back the next day, check the security camera by the door. We can't find anything, which is probably the most frustrating part for me. There's no
mhm.
one that came to the door. The building didn't burn down. We didn't have any messages on the answering machine. Or I don't know what we used in 2005, but people left voicemails. We didn't have any of them.
Answering
And
machines were still a thing in 2005.
yeah. So it was kind of just this mystery. What the heck was going on? And I don't know. I did ask my brother, well, what was the dream about? And this is what he said. And I actually confirmed this with him today. I was chatting with him. And he's like, well, the dream was interesting. I was plotting your murder. Then me and a group went to our cabin in the nighttime and everyone else shot you. We tied you to a table and started cutting you up.
Jeez, holy damn, bro. What do you even
What?
So he calls to warn you because he had a dream he was committing violence against you. Wow,
Yeah.
that is wild. A lot of people say dreams have no meaning. It's just your brain processing, decompressing, right? I get really intense dreams myself. Very vivid, not quite lucid, but I feel like it's real. I'm not viewing my dream from a third party perspective. It's just me. Anyway,
The
the point is, I like to think sometimes dreams have meaning. There's like a dream Bible where you can look up certain things. It's a reflection of your daily life. I used to have terrifying dreams of dying in a nuclear explosion,
dang.
like being close enough to where it would just vaporize me. And that was terrifying. And I would wake up and be like, oh, because if a nuke went off in Salt Lake or where I was living, what am I going to do? Nothing. I'm just going to die. I'm not far away enough. I had these dreams all the time. And in waking life, I would look up like what that like apocalyptic kind of stuff. And it had to do with some sort of fear or anxiety. But a dream like that is very intense. Do your brother and you have a good relationship? Are you close?
We do. We've always had a decent one.
So that's
Yeah.
not a normal thing for him to be like, killing my brother sounds good, you know?
No, it's not. He asked for $50 after that, so
That's funny. It's crazy that he remembers that dream to this day, even though it's been.
mhm.
Maybe we should look into the interpretation thereof. Um,
I would
wow.
love I'm gonna look at that now that you mentioned it. I'd love to see what Dreamology says about the symbols of
Yeah. Say what you want about AI, but I've taken dreams to ChatGPT. It has access to dream Bibles and interpretations. It'll say, oh, this could mean this or this. And it's insightful. Maybe look into that. Sorry, little tangent. So, anyway, your brother has this dream, and he didn't tell you what it was about until recently. He never told you in the past?
It didn't tell me in the moment. Told me later.
Mhm.
In the moment, he just said, "I felt you were in danger." He probably didn't wanna say, "You're in danger from me." He told me a little later. I asked him again today. He remembered that the table had a, red and white checkered tablecloth. He still remembers tiny details.
Yeah. I mean, who wouldn't? That's a pretty
Yeah.
intense dream. I still
Mhm.
remember dreams from 20 years ago because of how intense they were. So I get it. All of this happened. Nothing was found, nothing on the camera, no disasters. Ultimately, could have been nothing, could have been something. And like you said, it came from someone connected to each of you, not each of you as individuals. So why that? It could be like you said, if I would have had anxiety about it, especially where you were mentally at the time, you may have brushed it off as part of the anxieties, right?
Mhm.
And who's to say? We can speculate, but I like to think you and the other two were given these warnings for a reason. And like you said, in the mouth of two or three witnesses, for them to all be like, bam, 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 it's just too much. Gives me chills.
Oh, yeah, there's no way that's like rolling 100 20s on a dice in a row. The odds of that.
So when you continue to work at this place, anything else come up like this? Or was this a one and done situation?
It was a one and done situation. The director actually got fired 6 weeks later.
Oof.
So today I was wondering, well, maybe he was the one who's gonna do it. I don't know.
Find them on Facebook, reach out.
I couldn't remember his last name. I was like, "Oh, maybe he's been arrested for something," but I'm gonna look into it more. But yeah, I just went out through the rest of the summer and got my diploma and got out of there.
That is wild. I like stories that don't have an absolute resolution. I love speculating. Ooh, you know, could have
Yeah.
been anything, could have been nothing. So, moving down the timeline, moving forward in the future, something happened where you're living. Is that where you want to go next, or do you have something else to touch on first?
Yeah, I think well, one thought I had on the previous thing,
Yeah.
this is just me pontificating, but, I was thinking about how in so many movies and stories and legends, I feel like I'm much less orthodox than I used to be, much less scrupulous, but I definitely believe in the spiritual realm and forces of good and evil. And I think a common thing is when the dark side, the forces of evil, try to take away your confidence so that you can't hear from the forces of good. And I think that was kind of my takeaway from that was I'd let whatever happen in my mind. Right now, I don't believe that I was a sinner. I don't believe that I was this horrible, wretched soul. One of the reasons I couldn't feel any connection to the divine, to the light, was because of that outside stimuli making me feel super shameful. So I just think that, and you see this in movies, right? A demon comes up and he's like, "Oh, you're horrible, you're pathetic," all that stuff. And so this is just my idea that maybe whatever the dark forces out there, they know that if they make you feel ashamed, even if you shouldn't be ashamed, then you can't access the light. So that was kind of my takeaway.
No, I actually like that perspective. I can agree with that because we have common background beliefs. If you're distracted focusing on what's wrong, you're not able to hear anything else, even if there is nothing wrong.
Mhm.
If you believe in a spiritual realm and that there's billions of spirits here, a lot of them may know you better than you know yourself.
Mhm.
It's not that you're doing anything bad. It's that you're so fixated on what you might be doing bad that you're not thinking about what you're doing right.
Yeah.
I can subscribe to that ideology. Yes, please continue.
Okay, so I just wanted to kind of that tied that story together a little bit for me, even though I don't know what was going to happen. The next thing, I think it was about 2010, 2011. I moved to Utah, got my job here, was single, living with a bunch of guys. If you know the Utah Mormon culture, that we were in a, they call them wards, which you go to church, but really it's a big social group of all your neighbors that are single and young and stupid and all that stuff. And so, anyways, I'd moved down here and we just had a super fun social time. We all lived in a bunch of duplexes. If you know Provo and you know where the neighborhood Walmart is, behind there, there's a bunch of duplexes. That's where this story happened. They were really nice when they were built in 1980. They're probably like 2,500 square feet, huge bedrooms, but the carpet's from 1980 and the plumbing's from 1980, and they're old. They're old but big. So I'm living there. It's probably 2010-ish, and we're just having fun. You know, go hang out in the cul-de-sac, play Foursquare. Actually, we put Foursquare on the line in the road, and this lady moves in next door. She's older and calls herself a witch. You know, so it's not like a derogatory term where I know a lot of people say, "Oh, I'm Wiccan," or all those things. She's like, "No, I'm a practicing witch." And it's okay, and we don't hang out with her a ton. She's friendly at first, but we're all young in your 20s. You're more interested in finding someone your age than hanging out with a
An old
45,
witch.
50, an old witch.
Yeah.
All right, I'm shallow.
No,
So
it's just the nature of humanity. Like, what 20-year-old's like, "You know what? Let's hang out with our 50-year-old witch neighbor all day." No, I think everyone's
exactly.
gonna understand it.
We're just hanging out, we're having fun. It happened around June. She had a son close to our age, and he got arrested. I don't know all the details on, but he's worried. One night, I don't know for sure, but it was in June. It might have been the June solstice, the summer solstice. One night we look out and there's a fire in the middle of the cul-de-sac. A lot of weird stuff happened there, so I don't think anyone went out to look at it at night. But then the next morning we go there and there is a circle about, I'm looking down because I got the street view of it, which this is high tech. I'm going to show you guys. There is a circle with a six-sided star, the Star of David in the middle. I thought witches were more into pentagrams, so I don't know what's going on.
She wasn't a very good witch.
Exactly.
That's kind of funny. I didn't notice that from when you show that to me, and I'll have it pop up on the screen so they can see it in full here. But I never picked up that that was the Star of David. I was like, "Oh, yeah, just a pentagram."
So
Oh, man.
we had laughed. One of our friends talked to her, and she's like, "Oh, I did a ritual for good luck to get my son out of prison."
As
And
one
so,
does.
like I could have helped, but no. It bothered some people, some friends. It didn't bother me a ton. It was kind of annoying, but it was like, "Hey, I got a cool story. I had a witch that burned a weird star under the road. She kept doing it throughout the summer, and so it wouldn't go away.
Same
And
spot.
same spot, exact same spot. Which I don't know enough about witchcraft to know if it needed to be in the road. What if you did it in your driveway or in your lawn? But it's right there in the middle. She started getting mad that we would drive over it. And it's not like you went out of the way. It's there in the middle of the cul-de-sac. You can find it on 2011 Google Street View. It's there.
This is the Karen of witches. Don't drive over my almost pentagram. Stinking kids.
Exactly.
What are you supposed to do? That's like, sorry.
Oh, no, you're fine. So we tried to wash it off. I think she was using kerosene. We can't get the mark off the road. We moved to the fall, and she starts outlining it in leaves, which probably has some sort of ritual.
Sure. Yeah.
But this time she gets really mad that we're driving over it. I'm like, we have to drive over it to get to work. It's right there in the middle. We're dumb 20-year-olds. We're driving over it. My neighbor, when he would wake up and see the leaves there, he'd go get his broom and sweep them away. He I won't say his name, but he took the whole thing very personally. He was very intense about the thing. So this goes on, and finally she leaves a note, and she's like, "If you guys keep driving over my star, I'll curse you. Bad things will happen."
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So we're like, Okay, whatever." Luckily, my friend gets up early one morning, sweeps it under the leaves that she's put there. There are boards, and she's put nails sticking straight up through the boards. And so I guess the curse wasn't working, so she was going to help it out a little bit.
I was gonna say classic witch's curse, nails and board. Classic.
Exactly.
Basic magic. Yeah.
So, anyways, with that, the thread of, hey, now that you've done this, we would call the cops, and it simmered down after that. But yeah, that was our unfriendly neighborhood witch right there.
Oh man. So you call the cops on her. I'm sure she's not stoked about that. Does she continue to contend with you guys or what happens?
She stops doing stuff in the road, but she's rude to us. I doubt this was connected to her, but we did find a beaver with its legs broken that fall by our house.
You never know. Witches be tripping sometimes.
They be, but she did her witchy stuff in her house. She kinda just was the neighbor who doesn't talk to you, who shuts the door, who goes inside. Problem was her son was actually pretty cool, and he got out of jail.
I was gonna say, did he end up getting out of jail? Like, did it work?
Yeah, he didn't get convicted, so, there
Yeah.
you go.
Happy ending after all, dude. Turns out it
Exactly.
worked. Good for her. Power of belief. Sometimes just believing really hard or doing your ritual, maybe it works. Manifestation. What else is it, right?
Yeah.
Or just
Yeah,
dumb
and I
luck
I
and
I
coincidence.
agree with that too.
No, I'm just saying it could be dumb luck and coincidence.
Mhm.
Dang. That is funny. I cannot believe I never noticed that wasn't a pentagram. That's so funny.
It was just so bizarre.
Not even a good witch.
Yeah.
I have a couple witchy friends. I'm gonna ask them if putting a hexagram would make any difference as opposed to the pentagram because I'm not very well versed in witch stuff either. That's not
Mhm.
that's not my realm. I'm here just to hear everything. I'm not well educated in witchcraft, but I have a couple people that are a little bit, and I could just Google it. That sounds like too much work though. So
Definitely.
yeah, I mean, who's to say? These are wild. I've never had a witch in my neighborhood burning stuff into the street. And I'm surprised she wasn't charged with vandalism or something or what. I don't even know.
Mhm.
But I feel like starting fires in the road is not something you can just get away with.
Oh, I feel like if we would have pressed the issue, more might have happened. This was the neighborhood they never plow in the winter. The police didn't like coming around our place.
Typical student housing, pretty much.
Yeah.
So that kind of dies off. You eventually move away from there. You're moving on in life. Anything else crazy come up, or like these the two main highlights?
There's a lot of weird stuff that happened. It's a 30-second one. All my roommates move out, new roommates are move in. Same house. 2 a.m., I hear yelling. I'm the only one in my house. Everyone else has moved out. I hear yelling out in our living room. And I don't
Oh,
think I mentioned this one to you. So I'm like, oh, crap. What do I do? Should I take my shotgun and go out? Someone's in my house yelling. I can't make out what he's saying. I don't take the shotgun out. And I'm glad I didn't because I'm not the type of guy that people want. I don't feel like I'm the prime victim for assault. I don't want to shoot anyone. So I just walk out there. This guy's yelling for Phil, and Phil's one of the guys who's going to move in the next day. Turns out he was an autistic guy who lived around there who knew Phil. I guess I'd left the garage door unlocked, so he came in to find Phil at 2 a.m.
Oh, no. Not spooky, just bizarre. Whew. Spooky
Just
in the
bizarre.
moment,
And
sure. In the moment, you're like, "What is happening?"
so,
Oh, that is kinda bizarre.
so, just a couple quick stories from a place that will remain unnamed, just because it's a kind of a sensitive place, and the people who gave us access don't want us to tell everyone about it. Anyways, it was a medical facility for people who have mental issues. I will say it was not the Provo one, just because that's where I live. It was
It was
not the
out of state entirely.
Yes.
Okay,
This was a
okay.
fun one. I went with some old friends. There are these cool old white buildings. About half of it's been torn down and they've made nice one-story, they call them villas, which is good because that's what mental health should be, you know. But these are people who are forcibly committed. And the old buildings with white plaster walls, very foreboding. Um, and we were able to go on a tour. We didn't break in. We got a tour and we kind of got a little bit of free run. The guy who let us in told us a couple cool stories. First of all, so we're walking down a hallway and there's a dead crow. That's spooky. Inside one of the buildings. We're walking and come up these stairs. It's the second floor, and he's like, "This is where they used to serve lunch or serve their meals." And there's this painting of a rainbow, super bright, super pretty. I didn't take a picture of it. I should have. But he's like, "And you want to know why they painted this picture here?" Sure. And he tells us a story of back in the 80s. One of the patients at the hospital was able to get a hold of some sort of utensil, and in front of the stairs, he murdered another patient there, you know, and obviously that's a horrible thing. And ever since that happened, this is where the most paranormal things happen. And it wasn't just him. This was back before it was condemned, and everyone would I mean, right? You see that you're a nurse, you're a doctor, you're a patient, and you saw or you heard that this is where the man was killed. They painted the rainbow there to kind of brighten it up, to hopefully get rid of some of the bad juju, um, n- to get rid of the unholy vibes. And
There we go. I'm glad you said it.
so we went up the stairs, and I showed you a picture, which I'm fine with you sharing. I took a picture, and then a couple weeks later, it's just this old abandoned hallway, but in the middle, it sure looks like there's the outline of a human or a ghost. I don't know what it is, but that's the most evidence I've ever personally gathered of a ghost.
I've seen the photo already. You had a couple versions. One of them had been lightened up.
Mhm.
I see what you're talking about. I'll show it, and for those of you listening, go to our social media, and I'll have it posted there. For those watching on YouTube or wherever, what do you think? I see what you're talking about. It's kind of, like, distorted there, like, a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I 100% believe it's a ghost,
Right.
but it's weird. I
Yeah,
don't know what it
if
is.
it's not a ghost, the outlines of everything else in the background make it look like a silhouette. I see
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying. This one's easier for me to see than the one my previous guest gave, even though I can still spot that. Oh, and there's the cassette tapes. What year was this?
2023.
Oh, this was recent. Sorry. I thought this was like 10 years ago. That's crazy. Everyone listening, watching, I'll show that. Let us know if you see what we see. That is very interesting. Anything else you want to dive into while you're here?
I think that's about it. Those are I didn't think I'd have enough stories to fill an episode, but I think I gave you some,
Oh,
so
you absolutely did, and I appreciate it. They're good stories. I appreciate you reaching out in the first place. Appreciate you coming on the show, and glad you like it enough to keep listening. If any of you are listening or have been listening, first time or long time, reach out. I like hearing that people like what we're doing. If you or anyone you know has spooky stories to share, I'm here for it. I'm in it for the love of the game. Don't ever forget that. I'm in it because I like spooky things, whether it's ghosts, goblins, aliens, stalkers, killers, murderers, supernatural or not. I just am fascinated. So thank you again, Jake. I'll call you Jake instead of Jacob. Thank you again for coming on. I really, really appreciate it. I look forward to publishing this and seeing what people have to say. I hope you enjoy what we have coming because I've got a good stack of new stories coming our way. And if you have any other people that you know that listen or don't. If you got anyone with a spooky story, send them my way. Don't forget, you can reach out at Unholy Vibes Pod on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, whatever, or you can email unholyvibespod@gmail.com. Reach out and we'll chat. And if you're too scared to come on, but you want to submit a story anonymously, we can do that too. I have one already done. I've had a couple more anonymous ones come my way that genuinely gave me the chills. Thank you for listening. Stay spooky, and we'll see you next time.